morning to all. My name is Robert M. Taylor. I'm a member of the Lake County Democratic Club, and I'm also in charge of the Guest Speakers Bureau and Vice Chair of the same Lake County Democratic Club. Today, I have the opportunity for the guests and members of the club to introduce the most important person of law enforcement in Lake County in Northern California. As you know, right now, law enforcement is something that is equal to my heart and that of others. In communities such as these, Lucerne, Lower Lake, and others, it depends not only on one person to do the job, but of a lot of people, deputy sheriffs, and others, to make a difference. But this gentleman, who has been invited to the Lake County Democratic Club and to our guests, and also to the members of the club, is a very important person that I admire and respect, and I hope all of you do the same. With no further ado, I introduce the Sheriff of Lake County in Northern California, Sheriff Frank Rivero. I just want to let you know that we'll give 30 minutes for Sheriff Rivero to speak. Madam Chair, correct? Perfect. You'll have 30 minutes to say about what law enforcement does in Lake County. It's your floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me, and I want to start off by thanking each and every one of you for your support. I know it's been unwavering through some pretty trying times. I'm going on 3 years as sheriff of this county. It's been quite an educational process for me. I'm going to try to give you a very brief overview and leave plenty of time for questions and answers, because I'm sure most of you have a lot of questions for me, and I'll stick around afterwards also to answer any questions that you might have. As you know, I took office thanks to the efforts of many of you on January 3rd, 2011. I took over what I consider was a very dysfunctional operation that had many flaws. I realized those flaws when I joined the Lake County Sheriff's Office in 2007 after working for the San Francisco Police Department. So I had some pretty good knowledge of how the law enforcement agency is supposed to work, as opposed to what I was seeing on the streets of Lake County as a deputy sheriff. I made a decision to take the system on. It was a tough decision because I have a family. It's my son over here I'd like to introduce, who has been very tolerant of my adventures. But it's a problem, a situation that is still ongoing and still needs a lot of work. It honestly does. This is by no means fixed. Let me just say that the men and women who are working for me now, and 1/3 of the sheriff's office and the patrol deputies that are on the street right now are people that I've hired. And you know, you hear a lot of stories, particularly through this recall, of things that I've done, things I haven't done, the way I've operated. I've fired 3 people since I took office. 2 of them for workman's comp fraud, which I had film on, and an ongoing problem, not just in the Lake County Sheriff's Office, but straight across the board with the County of Lake. And one of them for being arrested for insurance fraud during Rodney Mitchell's term and not reporting it to him. I found out about it and I terminated that individual. All 3 of those individuals were rehired by your Board of Supervisors. All 3 of them, with back pay. And I can tell you, I had unequivocal evidence on each and every one of them that they were committing fraud on you, on your taxpayer dollars. The upside of this is that, frankly, the people who are out there working right now are courteous. They're better trained. They've been carefully hand-selected by me. And trust me, it's not an easy process because we don't pay a lot. I mean, we are way below the mean average of other counties around here for paying for law enforcement. But that's true straight across the board. As you folks probably know, This county hasn't given any of their employees a raise in 7 years now, not a COLA, nothing. And that's an outrage. I've tried to do something about it in the sheriff's office. I've been shut down by the board of supervisors once again. They tell me there's a Me Too clause in all these negotiations. I say, you know, they need to look at what they're doing, because there's an old saying that I learned from my father. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And you don't want monkeys carrying guns around, nor do you want them doing your bidding as civil servants, right? So that's an issue. But these men and women are working, and they're working hard for you. They really are. And they need your support and your assistance. And hopefully your contacts with them have been positive. We do checks. About a third of all contacts that we have with citizens, we call and see what the response is. Did they do a good job? Were they professional? Were they well dressed? Did they know what they were doing? They treat you with courtesy and respect as their employer, which is of the utmost importance. There's a handout over here that Olga Martin Steele, who is a very good friend of mine. She was my campaign manager and has been a devout supporter of mine, along with her husband, Jim Steele, brought, outlining just a few of the changes in the last 2 years and some change that I've been able to bring about at the Lake County Sheriff's Office. There's been a lot of talk about the raising crime statistics. Well, there is raising crime. You know why? Because the governor decided to implement AB 109. And now you have the jail overflowing, criminals being released out on the street. I mean, that's predictable and could have been preventable in my opinion, but that's what we have right now, and that's what we're dealing with. But the people who are my detractors, and by the way, I'm gonna just tell you who my detractors are. They are the corrupt, ingrained system that has run this county for decades, who have joined forces with commercial marijuana growers. Okay, and I said commercial marijuana growers. Let me clarify that. I do not oppose, and in fact, I respect the Compassionate Care Act. But it's been hijacked. It's been hijacked by profiteers, criminals, and organized crime who hide behind Prop 215 and the Compassionate Care Act to make ungodly profits from growing marijuana in your backyard and in my backyard. And I've taken a hard stance on it. Okay? I've put them in jail. I've called in the DEA. I've taken their assets. All things that weren't done before. I've tripled narcotics, and that's not to say much because, actually quadrupled. That's not to say much because when I took office, Rob Mitchell had one guy working narcotics. Think one guy can handle the narcotics problem in this county? It's absurd. But with the help of the federal government, the DEA, and some dedicated officers, and my leadership and guidance, many of you may know, many of you may not know, I was a narcotics cop in San Francisco. That's what I did for a living. That was my bag. I like it, actually. I enjoy that. But the narcotics is a problem, and a big one. It is the cornerstone of many different types of crime that occur in Lake County. Violent crimes, domestic violence crimes, grand theft, petty theft, and a host of other issues that spring from the narco trafficking that's going on in this county. And I include marijuana, methamphetamine. We've seen an uptick in heroin since the price of Oxycontin, which is, you know, doctors hand that out like cotton, like candy, has gone up. We need to get a hold of that problem, and we have. When you look at the crime statistics, and they quote crime statistics, but what they don't quote, like a guy like Brian Martin, who used to work for me, worked for Mitchell before. He was a lieutenant for the Lake County Sheriff's Office. He was a lieutenant for Sheriff Mitchell. He was also a big supporter of Mitchell's and orchestrated quite a few untoward actions against me while I was running for sheriff. Now he's the second in command of the probation department. The head of the probation department is a guy named Ron Howe. He was a captain under Mitchell, who also resigned under my watch. As soon as Mr. Howe resigned, he was duped into the job of chief probation officer. Now they could have put it out to probably tens of thousands of people throughout the country who would have been interested in that job, who had a lot of experience, but instead they did what they normally do, is hire their friends. It's called nepotism and cronyism, and it's rampant in this county. Can the normal average person who ain't plugged into Rob Brown or Jim Comstock or any of those other characters, can they just walk in and waltz in and get a job? The answer is no. That shouldn't be the way it works, but it is the way it works, and it needs to stop. And the people who will stop it are here today. You and your friends are the people who will stop it. You look at some of these statistics, and again, this goes back to when they say crime is on the uptick. Well, of course it's on the uptick when you start arresting people left and right, because that's a crime stat. Methamphetamine sales. In 2010, the Rod Mitchell administration made 4 arrests. In 2012, my narcs made 31. I could go on the radio, which I do every other week, and start saying, hey, that's, you know, a 1,000% increase and blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to give you the straight numbers, and you make of it what you want. Methamphetamine possession from 75 to 99, illegal marijuana sales from 11 to 17, marijuana illegal cultivation from 39 to 79, marijuana illegal possession 27 to 91, sex registered violations. Now this is a big one. We have an inordinate amount of predators in this county, of registered 290 sex offenders. And the way you deal with them is you send people out, deputies and squads, and you visit them and see what they're up to. Out of sight, out of mind doesn't work for me. Sex registered violations. 2010, 1. 2012, a dozen. That's from our sweeps, my men and women going out, knocking on their door and seeing what they're up to. And when they're out of line or in violation of law, guess what? They go to jail, as they should, okay? That protects the public, particularly our children, okay? These people are predators, many of them are pedophiles. They belong in jail. They get soft sentences, unfortunately, but we're addressing them, we're dealing with them. How about elder abuse? 8 cases of elder abuse were charged in 2010, 18 in 2012. This has a whole lot more accomplishments. I'm not going to sit here and toot my horn. Frankly, I got to tell you, I'll be honest with you. This is a tiring job, and I'm tired. I'll be straight with all of you, I'm tired. You think waking up every morning and looking at the Record B, which is a state-controlled newspaper, the same with in my opinion, the same with the Lake County News, where they twist and turn and write things that are wholly untrue, and having to see that crap every morning when I walk by the newspaper stand, having my son subjected to the allegations that they make against me. But you know what's interesting? None of them are about me taking money, about me doing anything immoral or illegal or unethical. they're all about, oh, he stopped the Hells Angels, he violated the Hells Angels' rights. Well, guess what? You have rights too. You think I'm going to put some motorcycle gang over your rights? Find yourself another sheriff, because I'm not going to do that. But it does get tiring. It's a constant attack. I spent most of my life in law enforcement. And now I'm on a Brady list. I'm probably the only chief law enforcement officer in the country that's on a Brady list. You know who you can thank? You can thank Don Anderson. Okay? In my office, they call Don Anderson Don the Dismisser. If I would have known just a fraction of what I know about Don Anderson today, during the campaign where I was being attacked on a daily basis, and I take full responsibility. I didn't have the opportunity or the time to vet this individual. But if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have let him within 100 yards of me. In my opinion, he's unethical, he's immoral, and he's a criminal. That simple, okay? You got your sheriff here talking about the DA of Lake County. And I'll give you a few examples and then I'll take some questions. I come into office, I'm not a month in office, and I hear about a nice little deal he cut with an individual by the name of Justin Lassard. Now, that may not mean anything to any of you folks, but it means a lot to me. Justin Lassard was the individual who was arrested by Lakeport Police, Chief Rasmussen, as a matter of fact, when he was a lieutenant. Arrested by Lakeport Police for masturbating at Library Park on July 4th in front of a 9-year-old girl. Now, Justin Lassard happens to be an HBO character actor. His family is in the banking business. This guy's got more dough than the man on the moon. Well, that tends to help, doesn't it? Well, it helped him. He hired a guy by the name of Paul Swanson, another name you may not recognize. Paul Swanson, Lakeport attorney, very good friend of Don Anderson's. Very good friend of Don Anderson. #1 campaign supporter, #1 campaign contributor to Mr. Anderson. Here's a deal they cut for Mr. Lassard. No time in jail, no sex registration, and he buys a playset for Library Park, which has now been dubbed by the mothers as Pervert Park. Does that seem like justice to any one of you? Because it sure as hell doesn't seem like justice to me. So what did I do? First thing I did was contact Chief Rasmussen. You know what he tells me? Oh, no, I'm an interim chief. You know, I don't need that kind of aggravation. I'm not going to take on the DA. A bunch of double talk, basically. A bunch of cowardly, gutless double talk. That's what it is. If you want to call it what it is, let's just talk straight here, okay? No, I don't want to get involved. So really? Well, you arrested the guy? This sits well with you? Well, you know, I mean, okay, fine, terrific. So I pick up the phone and I call Anderson. I said, what the hell are you doing? Literally, this is like January of 11. We've just taken office. He says, well, you know, I think the deal was fair. I said, really? How do you find that fair? He masturbated in front of a 9-year-old girl. You think that 9-year-old girl's going to be okay? Honestly? Any one of you think that 9-year-old girl's going to be okay? Raise your hand. Yeah, I didn't think so. So then he tells me he's moving to New York. Oh, terrific. So that means that the little kids in New York and their parents don't have the right to know that this guy's a pervert. He's a predator. He's a child molester. Hello? Hello, Mr. Anderson. Hello? That deal stunk so much that Ed Borg, the deputy district attorney who's been handling sex crimes, refused to cut it, and Anderson had to take it himself to the judge, Richard Martin, to get it approved. so this guy could get a pass. Talking about liking child molesters, Derek Navarro. Anybody hear that name, recognize that name? Derek Navarro, former deputy, continuing sexual relationship with a 14-year-old who was a babysitter. Not only that, he was a deputy sheriff under Mitchell's watch. They wanted to cut him a sweetheart deal. I took the inordinate action of sending the judge a letter. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was an ex-party communication. You know what? I don't care. I sent a letter anyway. I got chastised for it in open court. Terrific. But the judge didn't take the deal. So he goes to Marin County to get tried. Well, guess who went to testify as a character witness for Mr. Derek Navarro? Don Anderson. He told the jury in Lake County, in Marin County, that setting aside the fact that he was sitting there accused of having a continuing sexual relationship where he provided narcotics to a 14-year-old girl, setting that aside, if that's possible, I don't see how that can be possible, but let's just set it aside. If you set that aside, Anderson, or Navarro, according to Anderson, is an honest man. But you know, when I heard that, the only thing that really struck me was I'm proud to be on his stinking Brady list. Because if that guy thinks Navarro is an honest man, then his moral compass is 180 degrees off base. Apart from that, he's managed to gather a pass for his daughter, who's been involved in 2 domestic violence incidences. Been arrested twice by deputy sheriffs for beating up on her boyfriend. The second time, she hit the guy over the head with a rock. Busted his head wide open. Nice, huh? You know, there are mandatory arrest laws in this state for domestic violence. I don't know how many of you guys take domestic violence seriously, but I do. She gets a pass. He hands it over to the Attorney General's office. I'm not impressed with the AG either. I'll say it on camera, I don't care. I got nothing to lose. There's nothing they can do to me. You know why? Because I go to work and I go home and take care of my family. I don't do anything illegal, I don't do anything immoral, I don't do anything unethical. That's why I can sit here and speak candidly to each and every one of you and then go home and get a good night's sleep. With that, I'll take some questions from you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
If there is a domestic, problem, violation, if the wife or the husband doesn't press charges, is the state allowed to press charges?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't need a complaining witness. There was plenty of evidence against Jennifer Anderson when she, both times, but the second time she hit the guy over there with a rock.
Yes.
You know where you'd be? You'd be in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. That's where you would be. Okay? It's the 2-tier system of justice in this county, and it erodes public confidence in the entire system. Not that I'm advocating for any one of you to have any confidence at all in Lake County politics. It doesn't deserve your confidence. Period.
Sheriff, what do you mean by she got a pass?
She got a pass. Nothing happened. No, she was not prosecuted. It was taken to the same assistant AG who's assigned down here, who apparently is a friend of Don Anderson's, the assistant attorney general, and they didn't press charges. She got a pass, like you would not.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead.
A couple things I read in the paper lately. Richard Martin said he wouldn't do criminal trials while his son's running for sheriff, and yet he did a hearing the other day on a criminal case. And the other one was the guy that the DA released with serious charges against him in Lake County, went up to Humboldt County and murdered somebody recently.
It's more of the same. Richard Martin is Brian Martin's father, or actually stepfather. They're not blood related, but he is his father. And, you know, I don't have much to say about him. He gets, you know, the law here is shifting sands. You never know where you stand. You know, one minute they're not going to do this or they're going to do that. The next minute they're not going to do that or they're going to do this. And, you know, with regards to, you know, the prosecution of people, I mean, my men and women, they're distressed. Because when you strap a gun on and you put a badge on your chest, you're taking a risk. It is a risk that you choose to accept. Okay? But it is a risk. You could go out any day, get in that radio car, and the next thing you know, somebody's knocking on your wife's door, telling her, or your husband's door, telling your family you're dead. So when you're making these arrests, to have the DA poo-poo the arrest and just say, well, you know, I'm going to charge this guy because he doesn't know anybody, but I'm not going to charge that guy because he happens to know somebody. Again, that is chiseling away at the cornerstone of the American justice system. By the way, there's a reason for that, and Olga will attest to this. The previous DA had a 40%, John Hopkins, I'm no fan of his, but you know, I respect him. Okay, he's kind of arrogant guy, but nonetheless, he was a good prosecutor. Okay, he made some mistakes, and he did. And the most serious mistake was a sailboat accident. He had a 40% conviction rate. And that was shoved up his nose by Don Anderson each and every debate. Each and every debate. Had a 40% conviction rate because he took people to trial. He didn't cut deals with people. He didn't cut deals, sweetheart deals, where you might be facing 5 years in prison and end up with a couple days in jail. I'll give you a perfect example. Michael Mitchell. Michael Mitchell is an inveterate criminal. Okay? Criminal history as long as your arm. He lives in Clearlake. We set up a deal for Michael Mitchell to deliver 1 ounce of methamphetamine to the narcos. I actually took him to jail. I was right there to take him down. And we set it up so he would deliver it to Yuba College. You know why? Because that's an aggravating offense to deliver dope to a school. All right? So he comes in with his ounce of methamphetamine, take him to jail. He got off with 3 or 4 days. You know, if he did that in Los Angeles, he'd be looking at 5 years plus in state prison. But you know what? Guess what? That's a conviction. That's a conviction. So when Anderson comes to you and said, I raised the conviction rate from 40% to 50, 60, 70, whatever it may be, keep that in mind. Okay? Because there's more to those statistics than meet the eye. Not to mention the ones that he dismissed. I remember him telling me personally, he told me a couple of things personally which I found absolutely flabbergasting. One of them was that he wouldn't try anybody who he wasn't 100% sure he could get a conviction. Now, that's an interesting statement. Is there anything 100% sure in this world? I'm not 100% sure I'm going to make it home from here. I'm not 100% sure I would have woken up this morning or will wake up tomorrow morning. 100% don't exist. Okay, they just don't. The other thing is, he said he wasn't interested in prosecuting any marijuana crimes. Well, does that include the Mexican Mafia? Does it? Does it include those 2 guys that had the teenager in a 4x4x2 box and had 30 assault rifles on their property and 1,500 marijuana plants on their property? Does that include that guy? Really? Because when they're throwing dirt at me and they're saying, oh, you're taking the joint out of the little Miss McGillicuddy's mouth, there's one that says it all the time, Ron Green. Thanks for coming in. When they're saying that I'm taking the joint off of out of Little Miss McGillicuddy's mouth, that's not true. It's just not true. What is true is that I've been damn hard on the commercial marijuana growers, and I will continue that path until the day I leave this office. And by the way, when I do leave this office, I'm going to leave it with my head up high, and that'll be the end of the story. I got nothing to be ashamed about. I've done a damn decent job as sheriff. Go ahead.
Frank, what's your take or feelings on the piece of legislation coming out, AB 604?
Oh, you have to give me a little bit more than that one.
It's where they're putting the ABC and the state in charge of marijuana, medical marijuana, and making each license holder responsible and accountable, and creating a taxation.
What I mean, and believe me, what's my feeling on it? Like, you want to know my opinion?
Yeah, but obviously you don't have one.
Well, no, I know about that, about putting it under ABC. I don't have an opinion on it because, frankly, I think it's just another bureaucratic agency that is going to have its hands full with something like this. What the state needs to do is get some better guidelines. There was an opinion of the Attorney General in 2010 by Jerry Brown before he became governor, which says that he felt, and this is not binding, it's not case law, and it certainly isn't statute, but it holds great weight with the court, opinion of the Attorney General. And he says that for a medical marijuana user, 6 mature and 12 immature plants should be the guideline. Has that been followed? No, it's all over the board. Some counties have some regulations, other counties have other regulations. To put it under another bureaucratic umbrella, I don't know. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I can tell you this, it needs to be revamped and overhauled to get the criminal element out. It's too easy to hide. You get a recommendation from some doctor, and then you go in and you put in all these plants because you have a hangnail, and then you turn around and you sell them and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay? Frankly, my position is, and always has been, that marijuana should be legalized. But it needs to be legalized and controlled and taxed. And it needs to be legalized on a federal level, and it needs to be legalized by all 50 states and the territories also. So the profit margin is taken out of it. That's where the rubber hits the road. All right? I don't see pot as being any worse than, actually it might be less than alcohol. It's certainly less than other controlled substances like, listen, I'm talking. If you want to ask a question, ask it, okay? Certainly the OxyContin that they hand out like it's candy, that's way worse. The Percocets, all the opioids, certainly a lot of the methamphetamine derived, amphetamines and etc. So you're talking about just one more drug. If you want to make it recreational, you want to control it, you want to legalize it, fine. But do it straight across the board. Get the profiteers out of it. Get the people who are damaging society out of it. And then I'm good with it. I think it would be the best idea. Now that said, I don't believe it'll happen. And the reason I don't believe it'll happen is there's just too much money in it. There just is. There's money for the pot growers. There's money for law enforcement. There's money for the prosecutors. There's money for the judges. There's money for the lawyers, the defense lawyers and their advocates. So it's like saying, hey, we're going to run cars with water. Well, then what happens to the refineries, and what happens to the gas stations, and what happens to the tanker trucks and the ships, and they all go bye-bye. So it's one of many industries. Cancer's another one. Think they want to fix cancer? There's plenty of people that have come up with alternatives to chemotherapy and radiation. They won't let that happen. Those radiation machines are expensive. Chemotherapy is expensive. You know, you got a whole health industry that's built around cancer. Best thing that ever happened to the medical industry was cancer.
Yep.
So they're not gonna allow it to happen. Go ahead.
If you arrest too much marijuana or illegals, you know, the possession, the jails will be filled up to the brim. And what do you do with all these?
Well, a lot of them, well, first of all, Anderson isn't hardly prosecuting any of them. The DEA will prosecute some of them. I mean, you have to. It's like saying, well, what if I stop arresting bank robbers or rapists or child molesters? I mean, I just build a bigger jail, or, I mean, it's the same problem with any crime. Somebody commits a crime, they go to jail. My jail is busted at the seams right now with this AB 109. It is. I went from 170 people in the jail to 300 and plus every day now, and I got to deal with it. It's just, it is what it is.
I have a question regarding your opinion and thoughts on SROs on our campuses to keep our students safe.
We're pushing for that. We have one in Kelseyville right now. I think we're going to consummate the deal with Upper Lake here very shortly.
Yeah.
And I went to a meeting.
I would like to see it around the lake.
I would like to see it around the lake too. The only problem is, the board of supervisors ain't going to fund the whole thing. I'm funding half of it. My deal that I've cut with Kelseyville and Upper Lake, and the same deal that I offered Middletown. And I was just in a meeting about a month ago in front of the school board in Middletown advocating. You got a copper in school, he gets to know what's normal, and then when you know what's normal, then you know what's abnormal, and that helps. Plus the kids get a different experience with having law enforcement. It's a positive all the way around, because a lot of folks, they've only had negative experiences with law enforcement. And we need more positive experiences, and we need to start them young so that they understand we're the people that you come to when you have a problem. We're the people you can trust. So SROs are a great thing. I'm hoping that Middletown will join along. I mean, unfortunately, I got a memo recently that, they got to take money away from somewhere else. Well, I say take it away. This is important.
We are highly supportive at the Upper Lake High School Board.
I know you are, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. We're going to Sheriff Rivero. There is so many questions that all of you have, but I've been advised by Becky Curry, who is the person in charge of the Lake County Central Committee, that we have to move on to other items on the agenda. And I think my chair is giving me the second on this. So I'll take one more question from Moira. Go ahead. And
Hi.
And I would like to know, do you feel that Western per dog will be charged?
No. And I can tell you that one of the first things I did when I took office was I sent the United States Attorney a letter, a lengthy letter, requesting that federal, because the state charges, they dragged it on so long that the state charges hit the statute of limitations wall. But the statute of limitations is different for federal civil rights violations. So I asked them to consider charging him under the federal civil rights violations for taking the life of Lynn Thornton. And about a month later, I get a letter back from the Assistant United States Attorney saying, no go, sorry. And I have those letters if you're here to look at them. It was one of the first things I did when I took office.
One more.
Go ahead.
the last one.
I have a pretty good authority that there is quite a bit of marijuana being grown within the city of Clear Lake. Do you, and the Clear Lake Police won't touch it?
I just got a call last night on that. That's an interesting topic. Yes, there is quite a bit of marijuana being grown everywhere, including in the yard next to my ranch. Okay, so yes, there's quite a bit of marijuana being grown in the city of Clear Lake. I've gotten repeated over and over and over again complaints from citizens at Clear Lake. I send the narcs in anyway, and I'm not Greg Clausen's favorite guy either. He doesn't like me in Clear Lake, but I'm the Lake County Sheriff. People in Clear Lake voted for me, so I'm going to respond to their concerns.
Do you have jurisdiction over that?
Oh, I can go anywhere I want. I'm the sheriff.
Oh, good.
But I try to respect their autonomy. I mean, they have their own police department. They get paid to provide law enforcement services, but if they're not gonna provide it, then I'll step in. So, you know, I got, just like I said, last night, I talked to a lady and she gave me a couple addresses where she said there was a whole bunch of marijuana growing and a guy with a warrant, et cetera, so I just pass it on to the narcs, and we'll go and hit them. You know, as you can see also, we've taken an inordinate amount of methamphetamine down at Clear Lake. You know, my deputies patrol through there and conduct traffic stops. I mean, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It really is. It's like it doesn't take any type of expertise or a rocket scientist. I'm not taking anything away from my guys because, you know, we have drug dogs now that we didn't have before. So, and those are really handy because you just walk the dog around the car, he alerts, and now you have probable cause to go in and search the car. We're going to continue to do that. I'll continue to press in Clear Lake, but the citizens at Clear Lake need to also press on Chief Clausen and say, hey, you know what? We pay you to do a job. Do it. Well, or press on the city council. Do your job. You know, get proactive. Get the drugs off the streets and just a multitude of other issues taken care of while you're at it. And, I mean, that's what people are paying those taxes for. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
This letter that's going to go on camera is going to be for you, Sheriff Rivero.
Thank you very much.
For participating here, being a guest speaker at the Lake County Democratic Club. And who's in charge of the campaign management of his campaign? Because the last thing I want to mention, how can they get in touch with Sheriff Rivero if they have any more questions?
You want to get in touch with me, it's 295-6289. That's my cell phone number. Yeah, it's on the piece of paper. Anyone's welcome to call me. I always take calls, always return calls. I'm happy to hear from you. That's how I know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's also posted any information on the internet in case people have access to the internet to contact them, right?
You know what, I got a Facebook page too, which now I've taken to putting in some arrests, not all of them, but just some of them, so you get a taste of what we're doing. So if you just want to friend me on Facebook, I'll be happy you can take a look at that too. Or sign up for Nixle. You'll get the straight scoop without the media bias. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If he wants a copy, he will have to call myself, because I have to